All right, so today's training topic is all about accountability. So there's a few things that I want to cover because accountability is so important, especially when you are juggling a side hustle while also working a corporate job. It's critical to have a ability to make sure that you're able to meet your goals and not get sidetracked. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why is accountability important? So every action you take is stemmed from some sort of accountability. Everything you do, even the things that you don't even have to think about doing, you just do them naturally, it all comes from accountability at some point in your life. An example I like to use that everyone can relate to is brushing your teeth. Now it's something where you brush your teeth at least twice a day because you're used to doing it. But when you were younger, you very likely had whoever was taking care of you reminding you to brush your teeth. Did you brush your teeth? How long did you brush your teeth for? And you just started doing it so often that you enabled a sense of accountability within yourself to do it. And it became a habit. All those regular routines that you learned from a young age stemmed from accountability at one point, and then they became a habit because you do them so often. Everything you do, grocery shopping, laundry, cooking, cleaning, everything comes from accountability that likely turned into a habit. So you think about your day, and as each hour goes by and what you're doing, walking, running. Growing up, both of my parents exercised every single day. So I started exercising. It just became something where I was like, hey, you know what? They're doing this every day. They never forced me to do it, but I wanted to. And then I just became accountable to myself for doing that. And now I don't think about it. I get up at 5 o'clock and I go every day. So think about those things that you do, especially things you do on a daily basis. And think about when you became accountable for doing those. And then when they became a habit where you don't even think about it anymore. Now, what makes accountability so difficult? I often have clients saying, oh my gosh, I really wish I could be accountable to myself, but I keep pushing things off. There's a project I've been wanting to do, but I keep pushing it off. Those are things I hear often, especially when you're juggling more than one thing. So there's a difference between external accountability and internal accountability. External accountability is when you have somebody else holding you accountable to something. Now, in a corporate job, which some of you may have, that could be your boss. It could be a colleague. It's somebody else who's saying, hey, you need to do this by Friday. Or what's the status on that project you're working on? Can you give me an update? That's external accountability. That's when someone else other than you is demanding something and maybe adding a little bit of pressure there to make sure you get it done. A lot of times people resonate more with external accountability because it's not about them, it's about somebody else. They don't want to let someone else down. They don't want to hold someone else up. They feel obligated to do something for the benefit of somebody else. So it can be easier to be more accountable when it's somebody else involved. Internal accountability it's all about holding yourself accountable at that point. It's all on you. No one else is asking you for updates. No one's asking you to do something, telling you you have a certain deadline. It's all about you at that point. And when you're a business owner, and this is whether it's a side hustle in addition to a full-time job, or this is your full-time business, you are responsible for keeping yourself accountable. You don't have a boss or a manager. You don't have deadlines that are put on you. You control all of it. And that's what makes it very difficult. That's what makes it easy for things to pop up. And you say, oh, you know what? That actually sounds fun. Instead of doing that project, I'm going to go do that. I'll do that another time. And the more we say that and the more we allow for that to happen, the easier it becomes. And don't get me wrong, being a business owner, the best part about it is you can be flexible. And that's what you want. You don't want to be rigid with your schedule, but you also don't want to be so flexible that now you don't have any structure around what you're accomplishing on a day-to-day, especially when you have particular goals in place that you want to meet. There's a fine line there. And I don't like to say, you know, follow your schedule to a T, but I also don't like to say do whatever you want. You've got to find that happy medium, and it's different for everybody. So one thing that I want to really cover is how to hold, the first topic about how to hold yourself accountable that I think is really important. And I think a lot of people think about this, but they don't get down to the detail that I like to bring my clients to. And it's really understanding your why. Why is that goal, or why is growing your business, whether it's a full-time business or a side hustle, why is that important? People will often tell me, oh, I want to grow my business to maybe $1 million. I'll throw out that number. I want to grow my business to $1 million. And I'll say, oh, that's awesome. Why? And then they'll kind of look at me like as if I'm crazy. Like, well, why wouldn't I want to? Who doesn't want $1 million? Right? But really, why? Why do you want $1 million for your revenue for the year? And then they'll say something like, well, I want to have a team. I don't want to have to do all the tactical work in my business. Okay, that's awesome. What will that mean for you when you're not doing the tactical work anymore? Why is that important? And again, I get this look of like, oh, God, Michelle, like, this is obvious. No, I want to know why though. Why is that important for you to have a team of people? Well, it's important because then I can spend more time with my kids. Okay, awesome. What will it be like for you to spend more time with your kids? What does that look like? And again, I get, you know, these crazy looks. Well, it means that I can, you know, be part of their lives while they're growing up. I can go to all of their sports events, their school events, whatever that may be. Great. So now it's about getting down to the emotion. You've uncovered the whys. You've asked why 100 times to the point where, you know, they might hang up the phone on you, right? But now you got to get them to the emotion. Those reasons that example provided were all great reasons, but there's no emotion behind it. Wanting to be part of your kids' lives is wonderful, but what's the emotion? So the next thing I'll ask people to do is say, okay, following the same example, I want you to picture yourself. I want you to close your eyes and visualize to yourself what it will be like in, let's say, 5 years for you to have this team of people and to be very much so a part of your children's lives. Close your eyes and think about that. Sit in that. Visualize what your day-to-day would look like. Visualize yourself going to these events, being present, helping your kids with homework, whatever that looks like. And I'll be quiet for probably 2 minutes or so. And I tell them, really close your eyes and sit in that. Picture it in your head. Feel that emotion. And usually they start smiling and they say, wow, yeah, that's awesome. I felt relieved. I felt relaxed. I felt present. I felt happy. I felt grateful. You have to get to the emotion. Then, on the contrary, I'll say, okay, that's awesome. Now I want you to do the opposite. I want you to visualize yourself in 5 years. If that's your goal is $1 million per year in 5 years, picture yourself not having met that goal. You're working, 50-hour plus weeks. You're working on the weekends. You're missing school events. You don't feel like you're part of your children's lives. Sit in that. Visualize that. Yourself sitting at your desk long hours, your kids coming in and out of the house, trying to get your attention, but you're busy because you haven't grown that team. You haven't made progress toward that goal. Sit in that and tell me how you feel. And the emotion is usually, wow, that sucked. I didn't feel good at all. I felt regretful. I felt tired, frustrated, angry, burnt out, overwhelmed. Those are the emotions that people often say when they think about in that certain time frame of not meeting that goal that they wanted. So your why has to tie to an emotion. If it doesn't tie to an emotion, it might not be a strong enough why. You might have to dig deeper there. I'm going to write down a formula of how our mind processes information. So first, it starts with a thought. You have a thought. And this is, I want to grow my business to $1 million. That's a thought. Your thought creates a feeling. This is the emotion. That feeling is an emotion. So I want to grow my business to $1 million. What's that feeling that it's triggering? Your feelings and emotions create actions or inaction, one or the other. Therefore, if this right here, that emotion, that feeling isn't strong enough, that action is likely to not happen, or it's likely to not happen at the pace you want it to. You're not going to make the progress you want toward it as quickly or as effectively as you wish you could have. Our thoughts drive our feelings and, our emotions, and our emotions drive our actions. And that's with everything. It's not just with goals, that's with everything. When you're sick, for example, you think to yourself, oh, I don't feel that good. That feeling that you're then going to create from that thought is maybe some worry. Oh, my stomach hurts. It's been hurting for a while. I have a pain in my side. That worrisome feeling you get from not feeling well, that might cause you to act and go to your doctor. Or you might say, oh, I hate going to the doctor. I'm gonna wait it out another couple of weeks and see if if it's just a flu or a bug. But this is always the process that we take. Your thoughts always trigger an emotion, and that emotion always triggers an action. And sometimes this happens very quickly where you don't even identify what that feeling is. Sometimes it just moves fast, but it's always there. So your why has to have an emotion, because that emotion will dictate the action that you take. Okay. Yeah.
So, there's a book, The 7 Whys. So, Shell, do you have to get to 7? No.
Sometimes, and I think oftentimes it does take 7 times to get down to that why, especially if you're new to thinking in that deep manner of really digging into yourself and getting that level of awareness. The more you do it though, and the more you're used to asking yourself those whys, the less it will take, because you understand that process and you understand what the outcome is that you want to get to. The first time you ask people the whys though, it can take more than 7 times. But that's where you have to think about, okay, I'm asking this person why, and they're going to start getting frustrated, right? I mean, usually after the 3rd or 4th, people are looking at me like, oh my gosh, why do you keep asking me why? It's obvious. And that's where I'll redirect it a bit. And I kind of did it in the example of, okay, so, you want to be present in your kid's life. That's great. But now I want you to picture yourself being present and you've met your goal, and then vice versa, where you haven't met your goal. How does that feel? So if you notice frustration on the other end, don't keep digging into whys. Try to reframe the question into, okay, well, what does that feel like? How does that make you feel? Kind of change it into a what or a how.
Okay.
We want to stay away from yes, no questions at that point, because that's all you'll get is a yes or no. And that's not providing enough awareness, but how or why, or, what does it look like?
Okay.
Because getting a lot of whys. I've been on the end of that where, sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, now I don't even want to answer these questions anymore. Let's move on. So you can kind of get a feel for whoever's on the other side of the conversation. If they're receptive and saying, okay, yeah, why, keep going for it. But if you're getting the like, oh my gosh, CJ, why do you keep asking me this? Move on, reframe it and move on. Does that help?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So now that, there's an understanding around accountability, why our why is important, I want to share some tips, because understanding our why is great. And that's the first step. But there's also some tips that you'll need, especially if you're juggling a full-time job on top of your business, that will be really critical for holding yourself accountable and getting that done. So the first, this shouldn't be a shock to anybody, planning. So it's great that you're holding yourself accountable. You have these goals, you know what actions you want to take. But if you don't plan when you're going to do those actions, what's going to happen? Time will go by with no progress. What's that saying? I think it's if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And it's amazing how much time can go by and how quickly time goes by, where that, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, turns into a week later, a month later. When really, if you broke that down, you could have had that done in a couple of days probably. So one thing I want to share, and I don't, get any profit from sharing this, but this is a planner that I use. It's called Full Focus Planner, and you probably can't see it well on here, I'm guessing, but that's okay. The main points I want to share on this, and again, it's called the Full Focus Planner, is they have a daily section, and what it does is it has you write out your three big things. That's what they call it, your three big things for the day. And what you're supposed to put in that is, what three things do I really want to get done where if this is all I do all day, I've made progress. I can go to bed at night saying, oh, I made progress on my goal because I got those three things done, just three. Then you can always write down other tasks, right? Hey, if I have more time and I have more energy, here's some more things I want to get done. And then there's an hour by hour planner where you block out all the time you need to get your stuff done. And it's not just about work stuff. You can block out going to the gym, going for a walk with your friend, doctor's appointments, lunch with, a group of people, whatever it may be. I block out time I go to the gym in the morning. Usually it's early enough where it's, not interrupting anything. But if I go for a walk at lunch with a friend, I put it right in there. But then what I do is I time block everything else. So if I say, okay, going for a walk from 12 to 1:30, then I'm gonna, go to an appointment from 3 to 4. I know what I have to do that day. Now I'm gonna use these three big goals that I have, and I'm gonna block out time to get those things done. And if I have other time, I'll get this stuff done too. I'll get those other items done too. But planning your day out, every hour of it, even to just say, I'm gonna go drink coffee with my significant other, that will help you to plan out the progress you want to make towards your goals and to hold yourself accountable. Some people use digital calendars. That's great. I can't get away from the pen and paper. I don't know, crossing something off on paper is just very satisfactory for me. So I won't move away from it, but whatever works for you, where you can plan out hour by hour, everything, personal stuff, professional stuff, whatever it may be, that gives you a sense of accountability right then and there. You have your why, and now you have a plan of how you're going to act on that. And you got to be realistic. Don't tell yourself you're going to get 15 things done for the day, because you're probably not. Be realistic. What are the three things, big or small, that will move you forward for the day? Prepare you for tomorrow. Prepare you to meet your goal and get closer to that goal. And plan ahead. There's nothing worse. And sometimes it still happens to me once in a while. If I've had a really busy day, the next day I wake up and I haven't planned my day out. And now I'm sitting there in the morning with my cup of coffee thinking, okay, what am I going to do today? And I'm wasting time already. I'm already killing time because I'm tired. I'm drinking coffee. I don't know where I'm going to pick up. And now I got to plan my day out. So if you can plan the night before the best you can. Plan when you're going to the gym, when you're going to meet up with friends, when you're going on a hike, whatever it is, plan it. Plan it out. And just try to get those three things done and time block it. It's 2 hours for this activity, 1 hour for this activity, and write it in there or schedule it in your digital planner. That alone is a form of accountability. Now, if reminding yourself of your why and planning it out on a day-to-day basis still isn't working as forms of accountability, try to use a friend or a coach as an accountability partner. At that point, external accountability still may be the best source for you. If the why and planning still doesn't do it, try to get an external accountability person. This could be as easy as, and I've done this with friends before, they want to start working out every day. So what do? We text each other. Hey, did you work out? Yeah, awesome. Simple as that. It doesn't have to be a phone call or a separate conversation. It could be a text. Hey, look at, I planned out my meal today. Doesn't it look good? Something simple like that. Doesn't need to take up time on either end. It could be a text, a picture, something simple. But it's just something where hey, Rochelle's going to be checking in on me at 12 to see if I did my workout today. I don't want to tell her no. That can work for people. But I do like to say, your why should drive a lot of this. And if it's not, you got to go deeper with your why. You really got to dig deeper with that. You got to get down to the raw emotion of why it's important to you. And if you can't get down to the emotion by asking those whys, those 7 to 10 whys maybe aren't working, you got to visualize yourself having accomplished that goal or that dream you have, and then visualize not. In 5 years, I accomplished it. In 5 years, I didn't. And then sit in those moments, close your eyes and sit there and then get that emotion. That should get the emotion for you if the whys don't. Alrighty, so that's what I have for accountability, but now I want to talk a little bit about productivity, because being accountable is wonderful, but for those of you working a full-time job and trying to grow your side hustle or even, a full-time online business, you need to be really productive in the times that you have available because you don't have a lot of time. And I know it, I've lived it. You're working maybe 9 to 5, which is really in some worlds 9 to 7, right? Because a 40-hour job is typically not just 40 hours. There can be some long days there. So you don't have much time outside of that to really dedicate to your business. It can be challenging. So I want to give some productivity tips that can help with that. The first one is assessing your own productivity. How do you know how productive you are? And one thing I like to do with people is say, okay, log your activities for a week. It could be Monday through Friday. It doesn't have to be the weekend, but Monday through Friday, just log all your activities. And if you use a planner, it's easy because you already have it all written down. But in whatever form you want, log those activities. Now what you want to do is divide the number of hours that you worked, that you were productive on working on your business by the amount of hours that you scheduled yourself to work on your business. So let's say you try to dedicate 3 hours per day, Monday through Friday, to working on your business outside of your corporate job hours. That's 15 hours. But now let's say, because you're tired or you're trying to multitask, you really only work about 9 hours out of those 15. Other things are popping up, other priorities, unexpected things. Now you're going to divide 9 by that 15 and get whatever percentage that is for your level of productivity. You want that to be pretty high. You want it to be 75% or greater. We know things will pop up. We know that 3 hours per day, Monday through Friday, a full 3 hours of dedication can be really hard to come by. So 100%, as much as I would love to have everybody achieve that, it may not be reasonable or realistic, but 75 and above, that's a sweet spot. If you're finding that you're 50% or below your productivity percentage, that means something's off there. Either you're not being realistic with the times that you're allowing yourself to work on your business, because clearly something's not working. If you're only able to be productive and work 7 out of those 15 set hours that you have during the week, something's off. You might need to reassess the times you're dedicating to your business. Late at night, you might be exhausted. You're tempted to say, oh, never mind, I'm just going to make dinner and watch Netflix instead. So you got to play around with the times, figure out what will make you more productive. Aim for that 75% or higher. Now, it's also important to identify what helps your productivity. There can be a lot of different things that help you be productive. And what I want you to do is think about a very productive day or morning or evening that you had recently, and think about why. Why was it so productive? Did you get a full 8 hours of sleep that night? Did you work out in the morning and it gave you a ton of energy? Did you shut off your email and phone notifications so you weren't interrupted? Think about what made you productive. What made you really get in the zone and get that work done? This could be blocking off times on your calendar where you shut your door and you don't allow anyone to come in and interrupt you. You X out your email. That was always a problem for me. My email notification would pop up and I'd say, oh, who is that? What's the problem? Is it urgent? Do I need to answer it? So close out all your emails if that's something that really disrupts you and causes you to take your focus off of your work. Sometimes people say doing the harder tasks first help. So if there's something that you, let's say it's creating social media content for the day, it's something that you don't maybe enjoy, but you know you want to do it for your business, do it first, get it out of the way, and then do the easier or things you enjoy more after that. Get those things out of the way. Some people say, you know what, I like to schedule a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break every 2 hours or so. It's personal. It depends on, what your preference is. Everyone's different with this, but really hone in on, when you're most productive. What did you do? What was different about that day as opposed to days where you weren't feeling it? Think about that. And then think about what things really inhibit your productivity. And again, I mentioned my email example. Music sometimes can also inhibit your productivity. I used to sit next to somebody in the office who just always had music playing, and it was just so disruptive. And, we tried talking to that person about it. It didn't really work that well. They lowered it, but you could still hear it. Oh, I used to have to go to different areas to get some work done. I couldn't take it. People popping in and out of your workspace. If you have a home office and you have young children, them running in and out all day, that can inhibit your productivity. There's been research done that says that every interruption you have can cause you to take over 20 minutes to get back in focus with what you were doing. And I don't mean somebody just saying, hey, can I have this for lunch? Like a child asking you for a snack where you're still able to type and say, yeah, go for it. Not something like that, but something that really takes your focus away from what you're doing. Somebody that stops in your door and wants to have a conversation with you. A phone call where you pick up the phone and now you're on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes. Something that really peels you away from what you're doing. It can take over 20 minutes for you to get back on track with what you were working on. That's a long time, especially if you add up how many times per day that happens. There's just delays in your mental progress. So it's just something to think about. And be aware of what those interruptions are. So they can be very different for everybody, but just be aware of what those interruptions can be. Phones, it's almost like the technology world has made it so we can't escape from anything, right? Everybody's got your number. You have social media notifications. It's a wonderful and awful thing all at the same time. So figure out how that might be impacting your productivity. Next thing to think about is what times of the day are you most productive? What times, or even what days of the week are you most productive? Sometimes Fridays come around and people are like, oh, it's the weekend. It's only 8 o'clock on a Friday, but I'm almost there. And I really want to unplug now. So Fridays sometimes aren't as productive for people. Mondays can be really productive because it's a brand new week and people have some motivation behind them. They want to start the week off well. But figure that out for yourself. What days are you most productive and what times? There are some night owls that I know that they don't really start their day till like 3 or 4. It doesn't mean they sleep all day, but they're doing other things. And then they're like, okay, 4 o'clock, now I want to work. And whatever industry they're in, it works for them. They don't have to be tied to their business during the day. Then I have people that, like me, are up really early and we thrive in the morning. But by 2 o'clock, I'm hitting that second cup of coffee and saying, oh my gosh, when's the day going to be over? And plan your work around that. So all the project stuff I do is right in the morning. Client stuff I do is late morning, early afternoon. I don't do a whole lot later on other than these live trainings. So think about that and think about how you can make your productive times work for you. That's really important. And don't buy into all of the hype around, the different things you hear some of these, industry leading gurus talk about where, oh, you have to start your day at 4 a.m. and you have to journal and meditate and this and that. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Don't force yourself into habits of other people. Because there are so many articles and books about, the 4-hour work day and, starting your day at 4 o'clock and getting all these things done before 7. It just doesn't work for everyone. Your routine has to be very specific to you. Because if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. And then what's the point? Or you're going to be miserable doing it, one or the other. So find what works for you and disregard the rest, all the noise. There's a lot of noise online with everything. Stay true to what works for you. Next is multitasking. It's not a thing. You can't multitask. You can't listen to a podcast while you're working on a project, while you're trying to plan for an upcoming client call. It just doesn't happen. And not only are you making very little progress on all of those things, you're dedicating minimal focus to all of those things, but the work you're actually doing on any of those, it's not your best work. That's why I always say time block for your activities. So this is 1 hour I'm spending on my social media content. I'm not going to spend it on anything else. This is a half hour where I'm going to go for a walk. And while I'm walking, I'll listen to the podcast. Instead of my music, I'll listen to that. And that's what I'm focusing on. Don't try to have multiple screens up and have a different assignment or task on all your screens where you're going back and forth. It's not going to work. And you're going to be drained. It's not going to be your best work. Next is break your activities into the smallest of tasks. So instead of saying, okay, tomorrow from 9 to 11, I'm going to work on my onboarding project. There's a lot that goes into that. That's a big project. So instead of saying that, break that down into the smallest steps possible. One of them can be, I'm going to create my onboarding email. That's the first step in my process, is a welcome email. I'm going to draft that. Then when I'm done with that, I'm going to brush up my contract. Then when I'm done with that, I need to create my invoice template. Break it down into all of those pieces. And I'll tell you why for a few reasons. First, when you're looking at your plan for the day, it's much less daunting to see small tasks than to see a big time chunk with do this project. Second, it tells you exactly what to work on and for how long. Putting a time block for 2 to 4 hours on a project isn't going to hold you accountable to only spending 30 minutes on the email, then 30 minutes on the invoice and the contract and so on. So you might end up spending an hour and a half drafting an email when really you didn't need to spend that much time on it. But you've got this big time block with no structure. So break things down. Another reason why you want to break things down to the smallest of tasks is when you finish things early. Let's say you're ahead of your plan for the day, and now you have a 30-minute gap between your time block of working on your project and your next client meeting. You can bring one of those small tasks into that little slot and say, oh, you know what? I wasn't going to do this, but since I have time, here's something that will take 20 minutes. Let me do it now. But if you have everything in big project chunks, you're not going to think to do that. You're going to say, oh, I can't even start that. That's too big of a project. I'll just go, watch TV for 20 minutes or something. Break things down into the smallest of tasks, 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes, even 1 hour. That way, when you find these little gaps in your day, you can make progress on things that you might not have even planned to do. It's a good way to start making some momentum on other things and using your time effectively. And then lastly, be realistic with what you want to accomplish. Like I had mentioned before, the 3 main goals of my day when I fill out my planner, I'm being realistic. If I have a day with back-to-back calls, I'm not going to set my 3 goals to be anything that's really big or time consuming, because I know I won't get it done. I might choose to do 3 30-minute tasks if I'm booked all day long. You have to be realistic, because again, if you're not realistic, you're probably not going to do anything. If it's the end of the day and you're tired and you've had a lot of calls, you might look at your calendar and say, oh, work on my onboarding project. Oh gosh, that sounds awful. I don't want to do it. I don't have the energy to do it. But if you had something simple like draft the email for the onboarding client, you know that's not something big. You can probably do it in 20 minutes tops. You're more likely to do it. But you got to be realistic. All right. So that wraps up the training for today, all about accountability and also how to be productive so that you're holding yourself accountable and you're being productive during the time that you have. Are there any questions?
So I always think my problem is I need a fire under my ass, you know. So is that just because my why is messed up?
It could be, yeah. Yeah, if your why isn't striking some emotion and it's not that important to you to elicit an emotion that really makes you stop and say, wow, if I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And I don't want that. Then it might not be a strong enough why.
Do you ever find people that don't have a why?
No. There's always a reason behind us wanting to do something. It just might not be a strong reason. Or it might be something that they feel they have to do, and they're trying to take that on as their why. For example, I have a friend who said, oh, I'm going to start working out. And we talked about, why do you want more energy? Well, I don't know. I just feel like I have to. That's not a why. She felt that way because she heard everyone else talking about working out. So she felt, well, why shouldn't I want to do that? So sometimes people see other people doing something and they think, oh, well, I should just want that too. A lot of other people do. And that's not a good why. It's no why.
Right. Okay. Wow, I have a lot of distractions. Yeah, I was just thinking what you talked about, my husband walks in, my dog, and it's like, I just have to close the door, I think. Just freaking close the door and turn everything off. And
yeah.
I'll get more done,
And, I think what I tell people to do that try that out is you got to communicate, hey, I'm closing the door for 2 hours. I'm going to be focusing on this. Unless it's urgent, you'll see me in a couple of hours. And that works. But, I've had some clients just try shutting the door, and what happens? The door gets opened, right? Because why not? But when you can communicate to significant others, children, whoever it may be, that this is my time to work on this, and it's really important for me to get it done in these 2 hours and not get disrupted, that will work pretty well. Okay. Your dog, I'm not sure how you'll communicate that to him.
I'm going to shut the door.
Shut the door and he can't open it. There you go. Yeah. Because honestly, and I'm sure if you sat back and thought about it, every time, you have a disruption, no matter how long it is, you kind of get back to your computer and you're like, okay, where was I going with that sentence I was writing? Or what was that thought I had? Or it's amazing how when you're really in the zone and you're focusing, the little things, even seeing a text message and being like, oh, who was that? Oh, okay, cool. Let me respond. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much.
Right. Okay, I'm on it.
Awesome. All righty.
Okay, thanks so much, Shel.
You're welcome. Have a good one.